So great. Can you introduce yourself a little bit, please?
Yes, my name is Chad Hensel. I'm a short-term rental manager in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. Manage properties here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and in Greenville, South Carolina. I've been doing this since 2018, and I've seen a lot of changes and have pretty wide knowledge of the industry.
That's great. So can you start by telling us how did you get started with short-term rentals or with Airbnb?
Sure. I came from a hospitality background. Was in restaurants for about 15 years, and after that, I got into real estate. I was an agent and a broker for roughly 7 years. And when my time for that was coming to an end, I really kind of thought about those two careers that I had and tried to figure out a crossroads where those paths crossed. And by chance, I stumbled into a company here in Charlotte that was doing short-term rentals, and I thought it was a good overlap of the two things that I really enjoyed. So I reached out to them, and they brought me on board so that they could focus on their tech product while I kind of built out the real estate portfolio, and it's been off to the races ever since.
That's great. And you told me you manage around 51 listings. Is that including yours? I mean, the ones you own, or you don't own any of your own listings?
I do own 7 of my own listings, and it is included in that 51. And then the rest are managed for others.
Okay. And do you still work for that company you talked about before?
No. After I'd grown their portfolio from 26 properties up to about 72 by the time I left, it was just time for a new challenge. And I kind of started over with a different company, and kind of taken them from 18 listings up to, I think we're about 42 right now. So we're still growing, but we're being much more intentional about it. It's one of the nice things that we learned from the COVID times is we can't just accept everything. So we set out on a path that we all agreed on in our very intentional growth, and we're very happy with it.
Okay, that's great. And can you tell me how does your work as a property manager and as an Airbnb host is together? Like, how is the experience of doing both at the same time? I know it's kind of related, like it's almost the same thing, but I would just like to hear about your experience, like in general, doing both.
Sure. I mean, yeah, they are very similar, but there are some differences. When it's your property and your listings, you kind of take it a little bit more personally when a guest writes in about something that's not quite up to their expectations. But yeah, we kind of wrap it up all into one package and keep it as consistent across the board as we can. We host all the properties on the same platform. For example, we have the same remote customer service team that works for both sides. So we really try to, like I said, make it as simple across the board as we can. But yeah, you do take a little bit more personally on your own personal properties.
Yeah, that's right. I completely understand. And you told me you own about 7 listings, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So did you got started with short-term rentals already with the 7 properties, or did you started with just one and started acquiring more?
Yeah, so when I first got into short-term rentals, I was working for my prior company. And during the course of growing their portfolio, I was looking at the properties that we already owned that we had purchased just as regular long-term investment properties. And so, wait, I can make so much more money doing it on the short-term market. And so in between my prior company and my present company, I took about a year off in between to really get my properties up to a level I was happy with, and then kind of got back into the game of managing for others.
For the financing process for your properties?
Oh, sure. I've done a little bit of everything. The first one that we put up as a short-term rental had been our primary residence. Then we had just moved out, and the property we hadn't had it rented in a couple of months, so we kind of moved it into the short-term space. From there, we've done a couple of just regular investment property mortgages. One of them was a failed flip that we turned into a short-term rental, and that was with a hard money lender. We just got done closing with a company called Vizio, and they have a short-term rental financing product available. Those are starting to pop up. So we've kind of done a little bit of everything. A couple of them we bought for cash when they were foreclosure. So like we've really done one or two of just about every financing you can imagine.
And out of your all financing experience, which one would you recommend? Which one was the easiest to do and less expensive also?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, if it's a primary residence or your second home, those are much easier. Then as you get into the investment property financing with your normal banks, it's most similar. It's just much more stringent. You have to have the cash flow to back it up. Once you start getting into the more exotic programs, it takes much longer to get through underwriting, and the rates are more expensive. So I'd always kind of tell people to go with the traditional routes first, and then kind of once you've exhausted those, then start looking for some of the newer products.
Okay, thank you for your advice on financing then. And so can you tell me about your market? All of your 7 listings are currently located in the same market?
All of the ones that I own are in the Greenville market, and we do some of the managing for others down there, but the majority of our properties are in Charlotte. Neither of those markets has a terribly large seasonal adjustment. That there aren't any gigantic weather changes. It's not like South Florida where it's warm in the winter, and so we don't get that. It's pretty steady all year round.
Okay, great. So both of them are all year round markets. You don't see a big revenue difference in any of them?
Well, the area that we've chosen to grow, they're right outside of Charlotte. There are a couple of very large freshwater lakes, and so that's where, as a company, we've chosen to really put our efforts in. Those do have a bit of seasonality, but the more urban properties and the suburban properties, those ones hold steady.
Yes, that's great. And can you tell me how much monthly revenue or annual revenue can someone estimate in those markets?
Sure. For kind of our more urban and suburban properties, a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom can range anywhere between $35,000 a year and $55,000 a year, depending on the exact location. Then when you get out into the lakefront properties, that number jumps up pretty significantly to anywhere between $80,000 and $200,000.
Wow, that's a lot of difference between the lakefront and the suburban.
Yeah, and
they're
priced.
I've heard about the benefits of doing lakefront. Or like right now, the revenue is way higher. But is there any particular challenge that comes to rent a property that's lakefront?
Sure. I mean, so there are some of those regular logistical things, like making sure that you have all of the right water toys available, the floaties and all that kind of stuff, and that they're cleaned and always refreshed. And then out here, there's we work with a local boat rental company, so that way we're not handling the boats ourselves. And so we're kind of looking at several different things. Smooth, but there are some just strange things that pop up being lake houses that you won't get with a normal house in the suburbs.
My microphone, stopped working.
Sorry,
so can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you as well.
Someone tried to call when I was in the middle of answering your question, and so my headphones triggered there.
Yeah, no problem. It's I could still hear the whole answer. No problem with that. So can you tell us a little bit about how you told me that both of the market are whole year round, but if there is any seasonal change, how much would you say is the occupancy rate in those kind of peak seasons, if there's any?
Sure. We use kind of some pricing and marketing strategies that we always target between 65 and 75% occupancy. That's kind of, we found to be our sweet spot. Here in Charlotte, the fall tends to be kind of be our higher season, especially now that the concert venues are reopened, the football stadium is opened. We do have more frequent large events in the fall, but even then, the difference on our occupancy is only 5 to 10%. It's not a wild swing. We're not getting 30-40% differences.
That's still a good number of occupancy for all year round. So, sorry, can you tell us a little bit about how much would be the revenue difference in Greensville and in Charlotte? I thought I heard some numbers before, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, the difference between the two markets, a fairly normal house are very minimal. Because both markets do a very good job of having year-round events, and not have a tourism industry that's kind of outweighing the rest of the economy. So yeah, they're very comparable.
Okay, that's great to hear. And how do you manage pricing, both for your personal listings and also for the listings you manage?
Sure. We use a dynamic pricing tool. I'm sure you've heard of it, called Price Labs. In the past, I've used Wheelhouse, Beyond. I've talked to the folks over at Rented for their version of it called Art. We use those to kind of create a nice basis and to set up some programming. But then for our lake houses, it's much more manual. We look at those individually about every week or two to make sure that we're hitting our occupancy targets and earnings targets for those properties. And
can you tell us how much would be the price difference between a lakefront and a suburban?
Oh, yeah. That, do you mean on a daily rate or for the earnings potential?
Yes, daily rates, please.
Sure. Well, right now we're coming into our summer season, so this is kind of prime time for the lakes. And the rates here can go anywhere between $700 a night and up to $1,200-$1,300 a night. When you're getting near like July 4th, Memorial Day, Labor Day, versus our properties that are in the more central markets. We're looking at around generally $150 to $200 a night. So it's a pretty big difference.
I understand the price difference, but in the specific events, like you said, 4th of July, Memorial Day, how much do you raise the price for both of them?
It tends to be somewhere around 30% for our market. Occasionally we do get kind of more unique events or one-time events. Like this year, as a good example, we have the President's Cup, which is a very large golf event, and we have several lake houses near the where that event is being held. So even though that one is in late September, we're able to basically get our prime season rates for that, even though it's out of season.
And how do you plan the strategy to price those event dates? Do you already open the calendar for, I know, maybe 4 months before and start already rising the prices? And how do you do if, for example, it's already 1 or 2 weeks before the event and there are some dates left? How do you manage that?
Sure. In Price Labs, we use their far out pricing. So you can set kind of a rolling pricing category. So we open up our calendars actually a year out in advance, and we tend to charge higher prices, for the folks that want to kind of book early, and lock in their time. And then as the event draws closer, kind of our normal pricing kicks in. And then once we're within, I think it's about 10 days, this when we start offering small but incremental discounts to make sure that we're hitting our occupancy numbers. And then also within Price Labs, we have it set up so that once we get a certain occupancy number, our prices go back to kind of their floor. We get rid of any discounts.
And how much would be the discount you offer when you get closer to those dates?
I believe we have it ramped up kind of starting around 5% and goes up to 15% over the course of several days.
Those are good rates. And do you only offer the discount when it gets closer to, a date, it should be booked? or are there any particular other events or occasions where you also offer discount?
We tend to be a little bit more stingy on the discount side. We try to get it priced right on the front end so that we're not having to try to manage as many discounts as the dates get closer.
Yeah, I understand completely. So now that we talked about pricing completely, can you please tell me a little bit of the challenges that you have encountered, both as an Airbnb host of your own properties and of the properties you manage for other owners?
Sure. It's very similar in the challenges that we've faced. Finding a strong cleaning team. I think that's everyone's problem here in the industry. We all have
That's right.
the difficulty, especially once you get into more than 3-4 units. You really need that outside help. Kind of really from there, it's maintaining the consistency and the quality. We saw when COVID happened, my personal properties kind of took a little bit of a hit because I had to hit pause on some of the ongoing maintenance. And so some of that got deferred a little bit. And then kind of once we started getting through that, we took a real hard, honest look at everything that's going on and said, okay, we may have pulled back a little bit too far here and there. So now we're trying to get caught up. And I don't think that's too unusual for everyone.
Yeah, that's right. And is there any particular challenge you faced as a property manager, especially when it comes to how do you say this, to the people you manage for?
Sure. Trying to think of a good answer there. With the number of units that we have and the number of teammates that we have on our staff, making sure to set time aside to communicate with our clients, everything that's going on, what's happening in their properties, what we're doing proactively to increase their revenue and to take better care of their properties. That's been a challenge just because there's only so many hours in the day.
That's
and
right.
time in the properties that it's easy to kind of forget that step of having to create time to just communicate with the clients and keeping them fully informed.
Yes, I fully understand that. And can your clients get involved in many aspects of the management if they want to?
No, we try to be as turnkey of a service as possible. Most of our clients have other jobs or other careers that they're working in. So they hire, but they don't have to be as involved. Very occasionally, we'll have situations arise where we'll need their input or their advice on how they would like a specific situation handled. But outside of that, we try to keep it as simple as possible.
Okay, that's great. I've heard about that before. And but if someone wants to get involved in some aspects they don't usually do, they are allowed to, right?
Yeah, we on a case-by-case basis. I mean, at the end of the day, the properties that we are managing, we're not the owners. We're not going to be telling someone who owns a $1 million lake house that no, you can't come out and take a look at something while a guest is there. That's kind of the one that we run into every now and then. But yes, we try to just, like I said, keep as much distance as possible. We do, we give them all of the reviews on a nice printout. We let them see the messaging. Like we're very transparent and open with everything. But we really try to keep that distance. Just because on the communications, everything, we want this to be a business for our clients, and not just kind of them renting out their extra house for a little bit of extra money. We want them to really know that yes, this is a business asset. You're hiring managers to handle everything. Let us do the work, and as those rare occasions pop up, then we'll get them involved.
I understand, and it seems like your communication with the client is very good. So you keep a lot of clients, right?
Yeah. So far, we've been lucky. I'm gonna knock on wood there. In the 2.5 years I've been with this current company, we haven't lost a client, and we're gonna keep pushing on that.
That's great. So you've been in the property management industry or doing short-term rentals also during the COVID period, the COVID outbreak on 2020?
Oh yeah, I was there for that.
Okay, so can you talk a little bit about that? How was the market back then? How did it impact, and how is it for you right now? How did you came out of that?
Sure. At the time, that was actually when I was still in the process of onboarding my personal properties into short-term rentals.
Mm-hmm.
And we went from, having at the time, a very kind of slick team and set up. When the first kind of initial panic came through, I had two cleaners that were on my team. They both left like with no notice. They really did panic. And obviously with Airbnb, essentially allowing everyone to just cancel all their reservations. There was a lot of uncertainty. So we really just cut back on everything that wasn't a mandatory spend. Essentially anything that wasn't the mortgage payments or utilities kind of got put on hold for a little while. And so we just kind of stayed with it. We thought that that things were going to eventually return to normal or normal-ish. That if we could just outweight everything, that we'd be fine. And then, by the time May started rolling around, we were 2 months into lockdowns and everything else. So we saw pretty much an explosion of people that were tired of being, within their own four walls or, being separated from family. And so, people started traveling again. And at the same time, we had this kind of trickle that then turned into a rush of travelers. A lot of our competition had dropped out because they did not have the reserves to, last 2, 3, 4, 5 months with no income. And so just like we thought would happen, it kind of washed out the folks that didn't have the staying power, and the folks that were able to last through actually have been reaping the benefits for basically the last 2 years. So that's kind of where we were in all that mix. We were able to make it.
That's great. It's great that you were able to make it. And how long did it take for the market to start picking up again in your personal experience?
It took our markets probably about 4 or 5 months for the urban markets to start recovering. This is a weird juxtapositions out here for the lake properties. They recovered almost immediately. A lot of folks were looking around saying, hey, if we're going to be stuck in a house and we're having to quarantine somewhere, let's go ahead and get the whole family together. Let's go, rent a giant lake house for, 2, 3 weeks. Let's, we'll spend the money. It's fine. Now's the time to do it. So the properties here on the lake, they didn't really slow down. They actually got much busier than we had expected. So it was kind of a two-tiered recovery here locally.
Yeah, that's very particular. I never heard about something like that, but makes a lot of sense. So can you tell me a little bit about the revenue difference during the pandemic, when it started picking up, right? And how is it like right now?
Sure. Yeah, during the pandemic, obviously it was a much lower. I'd say we probably saw about a 40% decrease for the first 6 months. And then it started steadily creeping up and creeping up and creeping up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say probably by the middle of 2021, we were fully recovered. And then in the second half of 2021 and the first half year of 2022, we're actually outperforming where we were pre-COVID. So for our end, we're going gangbusters.
Also, you can still relate to your rates, to your pre-COVID rates. Would you say that it's like your top performing numbers pre-COVID and right now?
Oh yeah, we're doing much better now than we were pre-COVID.
Much better now. Okay, yeah, that's great to hear. So lastly, are there any tips that you would like to give for other Airbnb hosts, people who might would like to also hire a property management company?
Sure. For anyone who's interested in hosting, think very long and hard about all the details that kind of go into everything, and start to make systems and put those in place before you hire anyone or before you even really get too far down the road. Because there's a lot of detail, especially as you start managing multiple units, because at that point you're essentially running a decentralized hotel. And if you think about everything that has to go on there, you're doing all of that same work and activity just in multiple places. So it actually gets much more complex. For any property manager who's thinking of bringing on a property management company, I would say you'll talk to several of them and you'll really get a feel for how they operate. Ask to talk to some of their existing clients for references. And at the end of the day, go with the one that's going to give you the best feeling, the most comfort, and give you the most information as to how your property is actually performing. Because you will see that right now the industry hasn't quite coalesced around specific standards of information to be giving over, aside from just basically top line sales numbers and your bottom line revenue. But there's a whole wealth of information out there other than just those key figures.
That's right. Thank you a lot for your tips. And if you'd like to promote your company, you can do it now, no problem.
Sure. My name is Chad Hensel. I'm with RentLyne. We also operate the Lakeline brand here in Charlotte and the Upstate Co-host brand in Greenville, South Carolina.
Thank you a lot for your time and for your tips and all of your information. This has been really helpful and interesting to hear about.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Delia. It was wonderful speaking with you.
Me too.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye-bye.